What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is the Lazy Days channel and we are back at it again, and today we have some more history reactions for you guys, and we have some The Napoleonic Wars by Oversimplified once again, part 1. We are really loving his content. It's done so well. I'm really interested to sort of find out about this sort of this sort of era and this sort of time period, because I don't actually have too much information. This is sort of I'm either World War Two or sort of medieval. That's the sort of periods I really sort of liked. So this is sort of an interesting sort of period of time. Gunpowder was sort of only just coming about, and there was a lot of changes coming about through the world itself. So I'm definitely interested to find out a lot.
I want to see what it was like on the front line for soldiers back in there, and how it was like living conditions, and just seeing how it was just a different way of working. And
well,
how
I think it's quite scary, because obviously my thought process is a lot of going to be like bayonet charges into bullets. Like, they don't really have like trench warfare.
No, because it was mainly more formation as well, because you'd have the ones standing up, and then you'd have the ones crouched down, and it was ready aim fire, and then you'd have to.
It's still men just running into bullets. It is
basically, and it was cannons as well.
Cannons as well, man. It's it's a bit nuts.
Can you imagine just having a cannonball just fly past you, and you're like,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's any better or any worse than just hearing nowadays. Hearing no. Like, do you know what I mean? From a dropping missile that is being shot 300 miles away or something. Do you know what I mean? You don't see it coming until you hear that noise, and you're like, well, I hope it don't land next to me.
Right. Well, let's see how these boys dealt with it.
Yeah, definitely. So today you have Tubby and you have Jack doing the reactions. If you're liking our content, and if you're liking Oversimplified's first, go over to his. A link in the description will be down below. But if you're liking our content, then please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you've got anything you want to suggest to us, any comments, drop them down below. But we're just going to jump straight into this.
Let's do this.
Okay, Mrs. Bonaparte, this is it. One last push, and we're done. Congratulations, it's a general. Oh, and here comes the rest of the army now. Did you just say the rest of the army?
It's a cannon run!
There's two, and there's a horse.
And that horse has seen some shit.
That poor horse.
With very impressive origin stories. For example, Alexander the Great was the son of a king.
You weren't expecting that.
Came from an aristocratic family that descended from a goddess. Great conquerors don't usually come from relatively insignificant families living on impoverished islands. But as it just so happens, that is where our story begins.
Okay.
In the early 18th century, the island of Corsica was a part of the Republic of Genoa, until one day Corsica said, hey, we're declaring independence, and it's probably not worth your time to try and stop us. So Genoa said, you're right, it isn't worth their time. Hey, France, you want to buy this island? And France said, sure thing. And that's Napoleon to be born French.
Oh, wow.
New conquerors, however. And from an early age, Napoleon developed some fairly anti-French sentiments. Napoleon's dad, however, quickly embraced his new French overlords, which created some tension between dad and son.
Ooh, look at me. I'm Dad. I wear powdered wigs and silver-buckled shoes, and I'm a traitor to the Corsican people. Go to your room, Napoleon. No, you go to your room, Dad. Okay.
On the other hand, Napoleon adored his mother, who was definitely the disciplinarian of the family. And even though she would punish Napoleon severely, he kind of respected that. But Napoleon's
he liked
best
it.
for their family.
I
And
know
since
someone
they
who
were
likes to be
very
beat by
minor
their
in
mum.
ability, they were able to have Napoleon sent off to the shining lights and rat-infested sewage puddles of the big city. Napoleon went to military school in France. Okay, Napoleon, why don't you introduce yourself to your new classmates? Well, I'm Napoleon, and I hate all of you. Your farts smell like cheese, you can't pronounce the letter R, all you do is go on strike, and you call eggs biffs like a bunch of big dumb idiot dingleberries.
I mean,
Okay. Thanks, Napoleon. I
mean,
hope you like being bullied.
yeah.
He was.
What do you
They picked on
expect?
him for his Corsican accent, his family's lack of wealth, And it probably didn't help that he also had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he could hold his own, and on an average day, might be found dishing out ratatouille sandwiches for breakfast. He spent much of his time alone, and he loved reading about the great conquerors of history. He learned about Julius Caesar, and he wondered if one day he too might have a pizza franchise named after him. He excelled at math and geography, and when he graduated at the age of 16, he was made second lieutenant in an artillery regiment. Now, second lieutenant might sound pretty sweet to a screw-up like you, but Napoleon had a little something called ambition. Stonks of it. And he wasn't content being just some junior officer. He wanted to rise the ranks. Unfortunately for him, that would be a little difficult.
Gotta love people with ambition.
I've reviewed your application.
Oh, yeah.
It's clear you're very skilled and would be a perfect fit for the promotion. And Simeon, you're just about the biggest idiot I've ever seen. Your test results suggest
I didn't know I lived back then.
You seem to have drawn a picture of a gerbil giving birth to a shoe, but your dad is the Marquis de la Fayette,
Jackie's better looking.
so you get the job. French society was just too closed off. Positions were handed out based on nobility, not talent, and the young Napoleon probably felt stuck. Wouldn't it be nice if, say, a revolution came along and changed all of that? Well, what are the chances? The French Revolution is here.
No
The
way.
steel toppling, head chopping, king popping. The revolution promised to do away with the old social hierarchy and make everyone a little more equal. Napoleon may not have cared much for the violent mobs, but if it meant he could rise the ranks, he was in. He began fighting to defend the revolution. He put down a British-sponsored counter-revolution in Toulon and got promoted. He put down a royalist uprising in Paris and got promoted. And as his military prowess became more recognized, he was even given his very own army. It was astonishing progress for such a young man of humble origins, and Napoleon's wildest dreams were coming true. But
Imagine if you
Napoleon also
bullied him
believed
in
he could
school.
increase his social status if he
Now you
married
work
an
for
older
it.
lady.
Yeah.
And so
He's-
around this time,
he's so paid
Napoleon
off.
went on the prowl. However, if some sources are to be believed, he was a verified creep. He reportedly had terrible luck with women, and most wanted nothing to do with him.
Oh,
Fortunately, he eventually met
pig.
Josephine, an aging single mother who was deeply in debt and needed stability, so she agreed to marry him despite finding him intensely disgusting.
There's a lot of
Napoleon, you dirty
similarities
dog,
between this guy
you've
and
done
you,
it.
Jack.
Unbeknownst to Napoleon, however, Josephine had a bit of a promiscuous reputation.
I'm
Hey,
not
Napoleon,
French.
I hear you're marrying Josephine. Boy, she sure is a great kisser.
Have you done
That's right.
Ancestry?
Wait, what do you mean she's a great
Hey?
kisser?
Have you done
Hugo,
Ancestry?
you hear Napoleon's marrying Josephine? Wow, she sure is a great kisser.
My
Now
granddad
hang
has.
on just a minute. Hey everyone, Napoleon's marrying Josephine. Oh yeah, she
Oh,
she
no.
sure is a great kisser. Real good at kissing. Wow, I'm pretty sure I kissed real good. Oh, for goodness sake, is there anyone here who hasn't kissed my wife? Yeah. You. As Napoleon fell madly in love with his new wife, she fell madly in love with a man named Hippolyte. It wouldn't be long, however, before Napoleon would leave home and go to war, because while France was having its revolution, tensions in Europe were rising. Hey,
Okay.
Austria, you'll never guess what we just did. What's that, France? I got 2 words for you. Revolution. We totally just socked it to our monarchy. What? Dude, the rest of us are monarchies. You've just totally threatened the balance of power in Europe. Now we have to worry about our stinky peasants rising up against us. I mean, holy hell, your queen is... Okay, France, this is pretty awkward. And the rest of Europe is probably itching to give you a wedgie. But you're not ready for a war yet. So you gotta be cool, man. It's absolutely crucial that you say something to defuse the situation right now. Preposterous! I declare war. Sacre bleu! That war with basically the rest of Europe, and the War of the First Coalition began.
Oh shit.
At first,
That
France
is big.
struggled, but then they started to do surprisingly well, and in many conquered territories, they began to establish sister republics, exporting their revolutionary ideas across Europe. In 1796, they planned a 3-pronged attack to take Vienna and knock Austria out of the war, with 2 magnificent armies in the north to kick ass, and Napoleon in the south as a bit of a diversion. For the first time, Napoleon would lead a military campaign.
Interesting.
This was his chance to prove himself, to be somebody. And what a general he proved to be. The army he was given were demoralized, lacking equipment, and underpaid. But Napoleon galvanized them with inspirational speeches, and he took them into Italy. He was outnumbered, and his campaign was partially meant to be a sideshow, but he made it the main show. While the two northern armies were being held back, Napoleon made staggering progress. In a signature Napoleon move, he masterfully split his enemies into two and took them on separately, knocking Sardinia out of the war and putting the Austrians on the run. At the famous Battle of Lodi, he was in the fray, getting covered in mud and earning the total respect of his men. They respected him so much that when he ordered
down and dirty.
So basically, this guy's gone from being
a peasant who's
bullied constantly in school because of his name, and obviously he does have a chip on his shoulder. He's now made his way through the ranks.
Yeah, through the military. He's basically been put in charge of a side mission, which is basically a diversion at the south.
Yeah, you are this diversion. You are literally just.
They haven't said it like that. They haven't said that like that. Yeah. They've just gone. You're going to take that division. And you're going to attack from the south. Yeah. We're going to attack from.
We're going to do the main sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, he's just gone. Nah, let's just.
Not even. He's just like.
He can rally up troops to be able to be like, look, we're going to do it like this, and this is how we're doing it. And he's divided the two armies completely. Taken the first one.
And the best thing about it is he's down in the dirty.
Yeah, and he's getting down there with them.
Assault on the only bridge in town, his men threw themselves at it and took it despite fierce Austrian resistance. For Napoleon, it was all he needed to confirm that he was the greatest human who had ever existed. Wow, Napoleon, you're pretty great at this military stuff. Just be careful your head doesn't get too big. What did you just say to me, you little prick? And as Napoleon swept through the Italians cheered his arrival. Yes, I'm here to liberate you from your cruel Austrian oppressors. And replace them with French ones. Napoleon plundered as he went, sending riches back to France to help its economy, but also paying his men the first real money they'd seen in years. The Pope had been supporting the Austrians, so Napoleon briefly went to go give him a slap. And as he began to approach Vienna, the exhausted Austrians were forced to the streets, with Napoleon overseeing negotiations himself. He had just single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war. And by the way,
he single-handedly took out Austria.
Way. So what? Obviously, because the troops were fighting in the northern area, then obviously there was no one to defend the capital, Vienna. So he's just stormed straight there. And while they're busy fighting the forces, he's gone, well, we're going to do this treaty or what? That's fucking crazy.
Imagine, like, this guy you've heard about, and he's like, he's not going to get to France. He's not getting to France. No. And then he's not getting, like, past France. And then he's suddenly in the room in Vienna doing the treaty.
I don't know what you're supposed to expect. That's crazy. If you was him as well, how big would your head get? Drop it down in the comments below. Mine would get massive.
Oh, mate, I haven't. I'd be like, I own this entire country, I'm done.
I'd just be like, well, what you like...
I've conquered one, I can conquer another.
You going to let me lead her yet? Am I leader of France yet? Like, look what I just done.
He was only 28, so maybe it's about time you moved out of your dad's attic.
What?
In the Italian territories he had conquered, Napoleon established new
We've got to take a country in 2 years to make us better than Napoleon.
Oh, 1 year left. I turned 27 this year.
And the extremely unpopular government.
Shit, am I already 27?
Oh,
I turned 27 this year.
So they agreed he should go far away from France to Egypt, where he could maybe undermine British access to India.
Okay.
Napoleon was eager to win more glory, so he brought with him a team of scholars, and he was like, whoa, it's a freaky man-cat. Whoa, it's a big stick. Whoa, it's an ugly horse. Whoa, it's a stumpy little manlet. Hey, I'm actually average height for the time. But then British came down and his fleet, and an Anglo-Ottoman force defeated him at Acre, so Napoleon abandoned his men and went back to France. His campaign in Egypt hadn't gone but one thing you should know about Napoleon was that he was a skilled propagandist. He published his own newspapers that sometimes exaggerated his achievements, and even commissioned paintings that generally made him look cool. So when he returned to Paris, he was yet again hailed as a hero, and he began to get some power-hungry ideas. First, however, he had a bit of a problem to deal with. See, he had learned something shocking about his dear wife. Really, Josephine? This guy? I'm just as tall as him. I'm sorry, I swear. Now that you're becoming famous, I'll never do it again. Make sure you don't. I've never stooped so low as to cheat on you. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll be in this room consulting my generals for the next 30 minutes. And by consulting, I mean boinking. By my generals, I mean this woman. And by 30 minutes, I mean 2 seconds. Having dealt with his wife, he was then approached by a very influential
most men's problem
who said he had an idea. He wanted to stage a coup against the deeply unpopular government and needed the extremely popular Napoleon's help. And Napoleon thought that was just the darn tootinest idea. The plan was to trap the government and convince them to voluntarily give up their power. And here's how they did it. Hey guys, oh my gosh, quick! There's a dangerous Jacobin plot to overthrow you, which we definitely aren't just making up. Better get inside this cage so we can protect you. Okay.
You are kidding.
We got him. In this case, the cage was an isolated palace outside of Paris, with no one around but Napoleon and his army. With the government inside, Napoleon then entered, and a pretty chaotic event ensued, during which the government didn't seem entirely sure what was going on, Napoleon's men didn't seem entirely sure what was going on, and Napoleon himself didn't seem entirely sure what was going on. But thankfully, Napoleon's brother Lucien, president of the lower house, managed to regain control, and the remaining councilmen were intimidated into creating a new constitution. And thus, a new government was formed, this time with 3 consuls in charge. Napoleon did some rewriting. In the end, there was really only one man in charge. The first consul, him. And over the next few years, he worked to consolidate even more power. And essentially
sounded like the Roman Empire.
Control of France.
But he admired and read about Julius Caesar.
He did. And Julius Caesar had so Julius Caesar wasn't technically the first emperor. He never called himself an emperor.
Right.
But historians say that he was the first emperor due to the fact of what he'd done was he made a triarchy. So in the Roman history they had a consul, which was 2 people running the state, so it was shared responsibility.
Right.
So it wasn't like full responsibility on one person because they didn't want a king. But then basically what happened was he had it with someone else for a little bit, I believe, and then when he had to have the power taken away, he got into cahoots with 2 other people and basically had them being the consuls, but he was sort of running it with them, and he then basically run it first for so long. So that's where it seems very similar that he's basically seen what Julius Caesar done.
So he's read a lot about Julius Caesar in the past, and now he's just he's
pretty much just copied it. Yeah, it's quite funny. That's quite funny.
Bloody French.
Yeah.
Disgusting bedsheets. France was now ruled by possibly the greatest military leader of the time. Possibly the greatest. Or definitely. Well, now is his chance to prove it. See, back when Napoleon was still in Egypt, being Indiana Jones. Back home, France was in France, being France. They had conquered even more territory, and they were like, hey Piedmont, you get revolutionary ideals. Hey Switzerland, you get revolutionary ideals.
I didn't realise they did that much.
You get revolutionary ideals.
I think it's more they're saying revolt.
And Naples. Very cool nail gun. You guys here together? As France was still spreading the revolution, and with Napoleon busy in Egypt, the European powers felt the time was right for round 2, and the war of the Second Coalition began.
Lasted 3 years.
The big bad boy buddy Russia was here to bang some French boys back to Bordeaux. And bang them. They did. France got blasted. But then Russia pulled out after stalling in Switzerland, and now that Napoleon was in charge of the country, he was ready to start blasting right back. He took command of the army of the reserve, and he brought the fight to the Austrians. Now, there are many traits that made Napoleon a great military leader. I already mentioned one of them, how he was
one of the boys.
The total loyalty of his men. But now we see a second reason, the element of surprise. In 1800, Napoleon moved to Geneva, and it looked like he was probably going to take on the Austrian forces in Germany. There's no way he'd be crazy enough to move his entire army south through the Alps as a surprise attack on the Austrians besieging Genoa. Moving his entire army south through the Alps as a surprise attack on the Austrians besieging Genoa. Napoleon's crossing of the Alps is legendary, and you may have seen one of the most famous paintings of the general. A majestic stallion surrounded by dangerous mountain terrain. Of course, in real life, he made the crossing on a depressed mule. But that's not as cool. When he emerged in Italy, the Austrians expected him to come break their siege. But Napoleon went for their supply line near Milan, forcing the Austrians to meet Napoleon head-on at the famous Battle of Marengo. The Austrians initially clobbered the outnumbered French, and they were like, hooray, we won. But then a few hours later, Napoleon showed up again with an even bigger army, and he clobbered them right back. Holy cow, this tiny little fun-sized French guy is running rings around us.
Hey! I'm average height for the time, you jerk!
Then, after General Moreau's victory at Hohenlinden, Vienna was exposed, and the Austrians...
He's just got this tactic.
Just like the war of the First Coalition, the
It's
Second
incredible.
Coalition ended in another French victory. But in many ways, they both felt more like Napoleon victories. Only the UK remained at war with Napoleon, and they were using their powerful navy to blockade French ports.
I love our navy so much.
Yeah, our navy was so good. Well, I don't know, the British Empire come from it, so...
The British were interfering with their trade, so in response, they formed a league, and they embargoed the UK right back. Neutral countries protecting their own interests? That's offensive. So Britain went to Copenhagen and blew a bunch of stuff up, and the league disbanded. But because the UK's economy was pretty bust, they decided to sign a treaty with France in 1802. For the first time in a long time, Europe was at peace. Congratulations, sire. You've achieved peace. Yes, Pierre, but not for long. I still don't trust those dirty Brits. Did you hear they've been calling me the Bony Man? What does that even mean? Keep an eye on them, would you? I can't, sire. Why not? Because... Oh, yeah. Crossing the Alps, defeating the Austrians, and Europe at peace. What a meteoric rise it had been for the young Corsican. He had just taken charge of a nation that appeared to be losing a war, and turned it all around, securing French gains in Europe. But there was now a big question. You see, throughout the chaotic French Revolution, French governments had struggled to keep the economy afloat. They often didn't have a whole lot of support, and they frequently came and went. Would Napoleon finally be the man who could stick around? Military victories were one thing, but could the general also govern? Spoiler alert. Yes. The economy's crumbling? Well, then why don't you have yourself a new national bank, currency reform, and improved taxation and welfare systems? The legal system is an incoherent mess? Well, then why don't we nicely wrap all those civil laws up into one new centralized legal code? Corrupt government officials? Throw them in the trash. Bad infrastructure? Throw it in the trash. Throw them in the trash.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, while Napoleon was building on the equality of the revolution, he also largely scaled back rights for certain groups, and husbands had full legal control over their wives. But come on, ladies.
Right, now I understand why he was...
Yeah, I understand why.
Further reformed education, ensuring a system based on individual ability, meaning now Simeon had to compete with everyone else, and Napoleon could get the cream of the crop to help him run the republic.
So that's good, though.
Building on the ideas of the revolution had led to a lot of chaos, and Napoleon needed stability. So he rolled back a couple things, most notably with religion. The revolution had pretty much kicked the Catholic Church to the curb, but Napoleon understood that since many French citizens still considered themselves Catholic, that could be a problem. So he came to an agreement with the Pope and brought back the Church, only this time with some pretty hefty power limitations. He also ensured freedom for other religions, and is often noted for his positive treatment of Jewish people at a time of widespread anti-Semitism. But while all of this may make Napoleon sound like a pretty stand-up dude, it's good to note that he believed in religious freedom because he thought it was a powerful tool to keep the poor from eating the rich, or something like that. Overall, Napoleon's aim was to end the chaos of the revolution and finally create a stable and prospering French republic. And in that aim, he seemed to be largely successful and generally popular with the people of France. He officially declared that the revolution is over, adding, "I am the revolution." Napoleon's head could be seen for miles. Of course, not everyone was happy with Napoleon.
He's actually pretty clued up in some retrospect.
Yeah. So obviously he's clued up in the fact that he's able to, like, govern quite well.
He can govern quite well. They're not the best policies, like the equal rights for the women and other stuff, But
there are still good policies.
Yeah, he's still like able to do.
Yeah, like everyone within has to go into the same sort of education system, and you have to show merit, not just if you're noble or rich, then you get sort of higher up ranks and higher positions. You actually need to have it on merit. So those are good things. Yeah, it's interesting.
I didn't think he was that. I thought he was just.
You just thought he was military, and that's
just an all-round short little.
A lot of these people aren't. If you're able to govern supply lines, govern missionary tactics and squads, and govern that many people, these are tactics that you would learn to govern a country, I assume. Do you know what I mean? Like, governing an army is still doing rations, still making sure people can eat, and so on and so forth, making sure that your soldiers get paid, and this, and this, and so on and so forth. Like, it's all business. Government system is just a giant business. Yeah. You just got to be business savvy, do you know what I mean, I guess. Like, I don't know. Like I guess, it's the supply runs, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Making sure, like if you're here and your country's there, making sure your men are fed and the supply runs are going well, and making sure that your troops down here and those troops there are interacting at the same time. Like, it's all these things. It's the same as you got to make sure your government power is doing this while they're doing this at this point, and they're doing that there. So it all sort of interlinks, I think. So that's why he's sort of able to do it. But it is crazy how much reform he had. I think it's because he's not like insane. That's the problem you have. Like,
Definitely.
It's not just like he wants to build up and he wants the power, but he's not like blood hungry. That doesn't seem like he doesn't seem evil. He seems like he wants the power and he wants to be a bit. He wants the power, and maybe not for the right reasons, but he's not
not going around massacring people.
Yeah, he's not a lunatic doing it. Do you know what I mean? He's just a bit of a power-hungry person. He's not an insane narcissist with that power complex as well. Is what I'm trying to say.
Felt he was too radical. Radicals felt he was too conservative. But since Napoleon was a dictator, opposition could usually be stamped out with some good old-fashioned iron fisting. In 1804, Napoleon took one last major step. After some failed attempts were made to assassinate him, he wanted to strengthen his position and ensure his dynasty could live on after him. And so he decided being first consul for life simply wasn't quite enough. He decided he should become emperor. He held a vote, asking the French people if they were cool with the idea, and they returned a definitely not rigged 99.9% in favor. This man. And so on the 2nd of December, 1804, in an elaborate ceremony at Notre Dame, Napoleon was made emperor. The Pope was even invited to attend, and normally he would crown an emperor, but to make sure everyone knew this wasn't some Charlemagne-style circular power division, Napoleon lifted the crown and placed it on his own head. Like I said, the ball's on this man. Of the French. Well, Napoleon, you were a general, then you became first consul for life, and now you're an emperor. Is it enough yet? Is your ambition finally satisfied? I don't know, Pierre. What comes after emperor? I would say God, son. You want to be a god?
No. Please no.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, everyone. What's going on? This Corsican guy showed up out of nowhere, and he's kicking our ass. He's exporting the ideas of the French Revolution wherever he goes, and he just declared himself king of Italy and emperor. He can't do that. I'm the emperor. Oh, hey, fellow monarchs. I see you're having a monarch party. My invite. Set up a spot right here. Wow.
The balls.
You don't belong here, Napoleon. We're coming to take you down. I'd like to see you try. Oh, I'm so scared I just pooed my pants. Hey, everyone, I just pooed my pants. No, but I did just poo my pants. Before Napoleon had even declared himself emperor, the British had already redeclared war on France because both sides had been violating their previous treaty. Napoleon immediately occupied Hanover and then began making plans for a great British invasion, partially paid for by selling a huge chunk of land to the United States. Napoleon gathered his army.
He owned Louisiana.
But here,
Yeah, so the French, the English owned basically the east side, a lot of the east side.
Yeah,
and also the French also own some of the east side.
I didn't know he sold part of America. I didn't know the French owned that.
Yeah, they sold it back to Americans because obviously the Americans broke away from the British first, and then obviously the French were supplying the US to break away from the British, because obviously the French and the British never got along, so we were in some kind of like tit for tat. So they were like, oh well, like because we were in a tit for tat, we're going to help like make it more difficult on Britain because they're also going to have to deal with what's going on in America type thing. But they also gained a lot of land themselves from doing stuff like that. So then from then, basically, they've obviously sold it to the US. It's crazy. It's crazy how the US was made as well. Honestly, that's something we need to look into next, I think.
Yeah.
Drop it down in the comments below if you think we need to look into American history.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that, mate.
Yeah, definitely.
Was the problem. While Napoleon's powerful army would almost certainly obliterate the British on land, there was very little chance he'd actually make it across the channel, because Britannia ruled the waves. This power dynamic would keep the two traditional enemies from engaging in much real direct combat throughout the Napoleonic Wars. However, the British had something else up their sleeves: copious amounts of money. They were willing to throw cash at anyone who would go to war against Napoleon, and there were plenty of takers. Austria, and Sweden, hoping to put Napoleon's France back in its place, formed a third coalition against France.
Oh
the
my
coalition
God.
forces probably thought that this time they stood a chance. They weren't prepared for the total humiliation they were about to suffer. The War of the Third Coalition was Napoleon at his best. We've already learned two ways in which Napoleon was a great military commander, but here was one of the biggest reasons. organized his army into corps, which were themselves basically small armies. Each had their own infantry, cavalry, and artillery, and as a result, was able to act more independently. They spread out through the countryside, and by living off the land, rather than relying on heavy supply trains, they were able to move extremely quickly. Napoleon would traverse massive distances, outmaneuver his enemies, isolate them, and then move in for the kill before they even knew what was going on.
That's so smart.
That is so good. Like that little thing there, where what he's done is he's had the two come up from the top, engage that one, and then just left one there.
Yeah.
In basically hold them there. They think there's more of us. We're gonna go encircle these lot. Just keep them here and make them think that there's loads of us here.
The idea of him living off the land and getting his troops to do that instead of carrying the supplies—that's just genius. You're moving so much more quicker. And he's broken them up into different armies, like little armies. And it's like
little corps.
You're moving through their land at incredible pace.
It's crazy.
That's genius.
Here we go. Part of the coalition's plan was for the Russians to meet up with the Austrians and take on Napoleon together. Combined, they could turn the tide against him. So Napoleon needed to stop them from ever meeting. But he's all the way over in Boulogne. No problem. In a matter of weeks, Napoleon marched 200,000 men in secret, encircling Austrian General Mack and capturing his entire army. A devastating blow. Napoleon destroyed the Austrian army by simply marching. Next, he turned to face the approaching Russians. Okay, it looks like the French are coming for us, but check this out. I've got an amazing idea. When they approach, we run away. Sir, you're a genius. The Russians began Napoleon giving chase, and since his tactics relied on quick victories, this could be a problem, especially because the longer the war went on, the more likely it looked other countries may join the coalition against him. But Napoleon knew the Russian Tsar, Alexander I, was young and seeking glory, so he came up with an idea to lure him in. He sent him a message. What does it say?
No.
It says, "Hello, I'm just a little baby boy, and I'm very scared." Are you talking like that, or is he? He is, sir. Why is he doing that? I don't know. It's very cute, helpless, and vulnerable. A little baby boy, eh? Very scared, eh? Cute, eh? Boris, get my crossbow. We're going hunting. The Allied forces turned to face Napoleon, who they now believed was in a vulnerable position. He was set up at Austerlitz, and to make it look like he was retreating, he had even evacuated the high ground. A thick fog set in, obscuring Napoleon's center as the Allies took the bait and set up on the heights. From there, they spotted Napoleon's very weak-looking right flank, and they descended the heights to go get it. Little did they know, it was exactly what Napoleon was hoping they'd do. The next thing they knew, a large French force was emerging from the fog, launching a huge central assault up the hill. They swung around, crushing the Allies, and as men attempted to flee across the frozen lakes, Napoleon ordered his artillery to fire on the ice.
Shoot the lake.
An unknown number to drown. But he told me he was just
That's so smart.
You absolute genius.
Absolute genius.
I was the little baby boy all along.
And he weren't even aiming for them, he just aimed for the lake.
Just had to aim for the lake, bro.
Oh my
That's so smart.
God. I never knew this geezer was so smart.
The third coalition ended as yet another Napoleon victory. This was the third time Napoleon had spanking. And so, in 1805, Napoleon was determined to punish him. He was forced to give up territory, hand over significant compensation, and promised never to fight Napoleon again. For now, Russia, Sweden, and the UK remained at war with France, but none were able to offer much of a threat. And so, Napoleon got to work strengthening his grip over Europe. He gave out rule of captured territories to his family and friends, and most notably, he established a new confederation in Germany, with himself as its protector. Seeing his influence in Germany being wiped away, Emperor Francis acknowledged reality and officially dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, an entity that had existed for over 1,000 years. But it wasn't all good news for Napoleon. For one thing, Spain had earlier allied with France in 1804 because the British just couldn't help themselves from blowing up Spanish ships, and Napoleon hoped that the Spanish fleet would eventually be able to invade England. Unfortunately, he received word that British Admiral Nelson had engaged his fleet at Trafalgar. Normally, naval battles looked like this, but in this case, Nelson did this. Was it because he was an idiot? No, it's because he was a genius. He successfully punched through the Franco-Spanish line and unleashed hell. His victory ensured British control of the sea and
naval superiority.
Napoleon's hopes for a future British invasion were gone. But not just that. Napoleon was also hoping to secure peace on the continent, but that wasn't looking likely because the Prussian king was under pressure from his wife, Frederick. He's established a confederation in our turf, and he told us he'd give it and offered it to the British. You have to declare war on him. What is it with you and war? What is it with you and being a cupcake? Go to war! Okay. In October 1806, Prussia, with its famed military tradition, joined the coalition and declared war, beginning the War of the Fourth Coalition. Unfortunately, Prussian King Frederick William III wasn't the smartest tool in the shed. Look at him over there, being all French. Makes me sick. Boys, we'll get him this time. But here's the thing. This time, we have to stick together. Do not, under any circumstances, face Napoleon by yourself. You all saw what happened to Austria. Hey, where'd Fred go? Jerk. Some kind of big shot? Huh? Want to tangle with Fred? You got the cojones. We're screwed. Without consulting its allies, he move all his forces out of Germany. Now, some of you watching this video probably can't even wipe your own bum yet, but even you know you don't just send Napoleon an ultimatum. Obviously, Napoleon went in for the kill. Prussia's army was quite outnumbered, so when they met Napoleon at the twin battles of Jena and Auerstedt, it wasn't even close. Even Marshal Davout's heavily outnumbered corps at Auerstedt sent the Prussians running, and Napoleon carried out a ruthless pursuit of his fleeing enemy, taking Berlin, and within a single month,
heavily outnumbered and can still push through.
Frederick William and the remnants of his army moved to the east. At this point, Napoleon's forces were pretty tired. Winter had come, and conditions were miserable. He anticipated both sides would settle into winter quarters, but Russia decided to try their hand at an unexpected winter attack. A series of brutal battles followed that took a heavy toll on both sides, including the vicious Battle of Eylau, fought in blizzard conditions. Men froze to death, and many deserted. The Russian artillery tore the French to shreds, and Napoleon himself militarily underwent captured. In the end, the French army was saved thanks to a legendary cavalry charge by Napoleon's flamboyant cavalry commander, Murat. After the horror inflicted on both sides, they decided it might be a good idea not to do any more fighting until after winter. Then, after winter came, and the fighting continued. The Russians were pushed back to Friedland, where Russian General Bennigsen made a bit of a blunder by positioning himself with the Aller River to his back. The French artillery were able to pin the Russians between the river and their concentrated gunfire, a major element in Napoleon's fighting style, and many Russians drowned as they tried to escape. War of the Fourth Coalition. Victory, Napoleon.
4 victories in a row.
He's literally, at that time, his ability to outmaneuver and outskill other militaries is just you can't beat it.
You can't. It's absolutely crazy. I didn't realise, like...
I didn't know he was going to get caught as well. He was near to getting caught in Russia.
Yeah. I didn't realise it was sort of this grand of a scale. I didn't realise, like, the sort of warfare involved this much of the European continent.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I thought it was like maybe sort of like went to war with 1 or 2 countries, but it seems like quite a few big countries. But it makes sense because a lot of these countries were monarchies with a king and a queen, and obviously revolution-wise, they don't want that to happen. So it's really been interesting. It's been a lot of fights.
Yeah, I never expected Napoleon to be able to do as much as he's done.
Yeah, he's done loads, but that's why we heard his name. Like, it's just we haven't actually delved into what he's done. But there is a reason why you know Napoleon. Do you know what I mean? I knew Napoleon.
Yeah, you hear about Napoleon in school. Just think,
our fucking education system is shit.
Bad, mate.
So
7 years of Romeo and Juliet. It's literally
I love history as well.
Tragic love story.
I know.
Which is you both die because you both love each other. End of story. Don't fall in love.
I understand Shakespeare, but surely Shakespeare should have been like more in English, and it should be a subject of old English writing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not in your history. This is the sort of stuff you need to be learning in our history classes. This is outrageous. If you guys are liking that content, we definitely are. So if you could like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But we're going to catch you in the next one. But
go over it and check out Oversimplified. Videos are incredible. They're really, really good. Great laugh. And they're really quite informative as well.
They really are. Link will be down in the description below. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.